Marc Vermette, Chief Revenue Officer at Acerta. I wanted to ask you some questions today about manufacturers, their use of data, and how they're actually getting or maybe not getting ROI and results from using their data. So we hear that manufacturers have more production and quality data than ever before. Why do you think so many plants are still struggling to actually improve their quality?
Well, I think that the problem is, in fact, that there's more data than ever, right? So the real question is where you start looking at. People keep on adding data, but they're unfortunately not always doing something with it. So what we're reading a lot from executives that we work with is that their quality data gets reported, but they already know what's not working. It comes to their desk every day, every month. But the issue is they're at a point where they're saying, stop bringing us data. What's important is how do you make use of the data? How do you make efficient use of the data? How do you get insight and how do you make your quality more actionable? Just adding data for data is not going to help you improve your quality.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And we do hear that in addition to data, there's MES systems, QMS, SBC dashboards, historians, technology they've used to try to get insights. Why do you think these haven't really changed the game and led to more significant improvement?
Well, all these systems are critical. Don't get me wrong, they need to be used. The problem is improvement comes from using the data, taking action, and really having a real design to change things, right? MES will act as a real-time bridge between your ERP and your shop floor production. Tons of data gets recorded on your production, your consumption, your work in progress, all of that good stuff, but all that information goes into a database and rarely is it being used for taking improvement action. Same thing, your QMS there, you want to ensure consistent product quality, you need to meet customer requirement, you need to meet safety standards, regulatory standards. SPC is the same thing, but they're just being used to report data, right? So I like to use a bad analogy, right? Is that somebody that looks at the weigh scale every morning, right? I know I have a few pounds over, fine, but what is it that I do with it, right? And the same thing with quality, right? You need to be motivated to do something with it. You need to show conviction, and it's difficult to change. But if you're really able to start looking at the data that you have differently and then really embed it in your ways of working, that data that you've collected becomes of significant value. But that's not easy. And I think that's what we're starting to see is that there's a lot of systems, there's a lot of data, but how do we bring it into one place where it can be managed and can be actionated in the right way?
That reminds me of something you've said before in regards to quality specifically. So you've said there's kind of reportable quality versus actionable quality. What's the difference, and can you maybe dive in a little bit more there?
Yeah. Well, I think, despite the progress in technology and the landscape, quality still today remains what I would say traditional, conservative, and procedural. But don't get me wrong, again, that's highly needed. Everything we do needs to be done with quality, whether it's what we build as a product, what we do as a service, quality is front and center in everything we should be doing. I think that's where the big shift is reporting is I'm going to tell you the way things are. It's to me more of a rear view mirror of the situation, looking back and saying, okay, this is what we've been doing. Now, if you just report it on a dashboard and you don't take action, you're not going to improve. So the whole idea about actionable quality is use systems like the one we have here at LinePulse to do root cause analysis. Understand, read through that ocean of data. What are the key things that I need to work on? Do I think that the parameters that have the highest probability of causing the issue that I have? How do I look for process over time as the process is drifting to take proactive, preventive action? And then when you get in that mode, you're really in the actionable quality. Unfortunately, there's still a lot of companies that are more in the reportable quality than the actionable quality.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We're hearing in industry two other terms like embedded quality to kind of describe this same phenomenon.
Yeah.
And, clearly there's still a gap on the factory floor with the way quality teams are dealing with this or maybe making that transition into using data more effectively. What are some of the frustrations you're hearing from them with the way things are right now?
Well, I'd say frustration might be a big word. I think that what people are starting to struggle is with the amount of time it takes to do analysis and look at the data, with data piling up and them not necessarily being properly equipped to bring the data into a centralized way, cleaning it, analyzing it to a certain extent before being able to have the first meeting to solve. I mean, we're hearing some customers saying it takes 2 weeks just to get the data ready to solve a problem. Well, during those 2 weeks, if it's only 2 weeks, right, you keep producing product with issues. You keep producing scrap or rework, and that's frustrating, right? It takes a lot of time away from the workers, but at the same time, they know that the situation is not improving. So I think really everyone is looking at doing their job better, faster, spend time on value added things, bring quality. They're hopefully trying to avoid night shift, weekends, overtime because of the imperatives of production, and they're caught in firefighting mode. So I think if I was to say frustration, is I think people start to know that there are tools out there, but Excel or Minitab or Power BI are not just enough for what they want to do, and they're keen on getting back to value added things. But in some cases, budget is not there, or time availability to research tools like ours is not possible for them.
Is there more you can say on why the root cause analysis piece ends up taking so long at plants? We often hear it's like weeks or even months that they sometimes take to find the source of an issue.
Yeah, I've been having conversation with customers asking exactly that same question. They said, "Well, we used not to have too much data, and it was manageable by a human brain." What they're saying now is with the amount of data, and often the data being unstructured, siloed, coming from different places across, an increasing complexity of parts and process, it takes quite a bit of time just to get the data in a centralized way that you can start looking at it across process. So that's just like taking time. Now, think of a complex assembly. It might be that all your parts through every operation were good, right? They were declared good through the process. But when you start putting them together, well, that's where you're having issues. You get to the end of line testing and it's failing. But where do you start looking if you have 10 systems with data and where is the issue, right? So I think that's really where people are telling us it's becoming impossible. You really need to leverage AI, ML technologies to support that, because otherwise it just takes too long and you don't know where to start. And what happens is people won't just do it. They just will accept the situation. And then quite frankly, that's one thing we see often in plants is people have sort of abdicated. They know there's an issue, but they just can't figure out where it is, and they're just busy with other things. I think that's where really tools like ours with LinePulse allows them to have the proper lens to see through all this data and through sensitivity analysis and process monitoring and process-driven anomaly detection. That's really where we can help them.
And we hear as well that sometimes that slow problem solving ends up really being costly for plants. How does that exactly translate into financial impact?
Well, I think there's a couple of ways, right? So it takes more engineering time, more engineering resources. So you have to throw teams trying to look at what the problem is, while they're doing a lot of other things. Your customer saying where engineers have to stay and do overtime, they have to come over the weekend. Sometimes it's through the holidays. But I think that the real issue is the time. So that's definitely one issue, but it's all the time that gets lost by working on getting the data, cleaning it, putting it into the format. The issue is while you're doing that, you keep piling up scrap, you keep piling up rework, and the longer it takes for you to fix the problem, uh, the longer you're going to be bleeding money through rework and scrap parts. So that's going to have big direct impact on your cost of poor quality.
Yeah. And yet, to your earlier point, sometimes we see manufacturers who have just kind of, accepted that that's their reality. Yet it is making this dramatic increase in costs and real waste in production. Why do you think companies might underestimate the cost of slow root cause analysis?
I don't think they're underestimating it. I think everybody realizes that it's expensive. I'd say they probably don't know how to accelerate resolution today. And solutions like ours at LinePulse are very effective, but not everyone's aware of the capabilities. Now, with the venue of AI, some people are trying to get into and having conversation or trying to build internally, but that's not easy. So they will tend to use Excel, Minitab, or Power BI to the best of their capabilities, but like there again, there's no defined model. So I think it's our goal, companies like us at Acerta with LinePulse, to create more awareness, educate those people, and show them the power of advanced analytics and advanced diagnostic tool to really help them accelerate fast track root cause analysis. But even more so, prevent issues from happening from the get go by tighter monitoring of the process, anomaly detection, better understanding of multivariable dependencies, and hence they being more in control of their process to reduce occurrences of issues.
So we've talked a lot about what's kind of wrong with maybe the current situation or some of these traditional methods, what the problems are. What does it actually look like when a plant starts moving towards actionable quality instead of relying on it as just a reported quality type of paradigm?
Well, I think it's when really quality becomes embedded in your process. It's not just a procedure, it's not just documentation, it's not just data recording, right? It's beyond reporting is again taking real action. Think about setting an alert monitoring, having alert telling you that you're nearing a tolerance or there's a process drift, and then you can take quickly an action. This is what I mean by making the quality actionable, right? I know something is about to happen. Let's not wait for it to happen. Let's prevent it from happening. So essentially enabling your team to take action much faster. You know, obviously there will always be issues. So if there are issues, then how can I close the loop, the quality loop faster? How can I identify? How can I root cause? How can I simulate or optimize my parameters before I go back to the line without making changes that could make the situation worse? And then start monitoring closely to make sure we prevent this. I think that if we were to go one step further, right, I talked about actionable quality, but I think in the years to come, with more AI and challenges with turnover and resource availability, I can think of autonomous operations. So as systems like ours find out about some drifts, about some issues, how do we bring this information back to the controllers, to the machine, to make intelligent action? So how can I narrow my variability in my process and maybe shift my process to the right place where we want without ultimately human intervention in the future, because obviously right now there's still an element of trust and sometimes doubt in manufacturing. But I think that future is not far.
So, about the human element, a little bit more, maybe from what you've seen with our customers' experiences when they've made this transition. What changes when teams start to work that way? What are the people experiencing?
It's essentially satisfaction, right? And it's removing a burden. Today, every time there's an issue, they know they're going to have to it's going to take time away from them. And it's really moving them away from being firefighters to be more in control what they're doing. Everybody is happy when the line's running to expectation. Their KPIs are positive, right? The energy that is being spent is good. You go to work in the morning and you're going to have new things to do. You're not going to be working in the same things you've been trying to fix for ages. I think motivation, creativity, energy, which are all things that are needed for a business to perform.
right? And so finally, if you're a plant leader looking to actually make this transition, improve your quality performance significantly, what's kind of the mindset shift that needs to happen?
Well, I would say don't wait. Start now, and really drive a bias for action. Resist the temptation of adding data. Spend more time making sure your data is centralized and your data is accessible. Just don't burden yourself with too much data. The other thing is try to look for the right data, but it's hard to know until you start a project, do I have the right data? So sometimes it's better to start and finding out what you're missing than waiting for everything to be perfect. But also, I think that there's a human aspect to everything we do. A system alone isn't going to drive change. It's about enabling your people, getting them on board, supporting them, and having them really to see value in the tool and bring it into your daily operation. That's really what's going to drive it. Don't just use systems for troubleshooting. Make it a way of working. Build it in your daily operations.
Great. Thank you so much, Marc, for answering some questions. We'll talk to you later.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you.